the second page of speakers.
Okay.
So I might have to get up.
Okay.
Did you sign up to speak?
No.
Okay. So I just might need somebody to hold this.
Yeah. Who's sitting here?
You if you want.
Okay. I'll bring that down.
So I go up there and I ask her to put up more chairs. And she's like, well, this is the normal room. She's like, are there older people? I'm like, yeah, there's going to be older people. She's like, okay. I go back over there 10 minutes later, nothing's been done. I'm like, hey, put chairs or I'll file your VA. And then she's like, well, you have to ask Jill. But Jill's on the phone. So I yell at Jill. She's like, don't yell at Jill. Jill immediately gets off the phone and talks to Dad. And then she gets
Just like,
you just have
be
to
a
be
decent
here.
person.
Yeah, but you also just have to be here to say something. Security staff were standing next to her getting edgy because I was asking for chairs, and now they're the ones for the chairs. It's very satisfying. I didn't think I'd start the day angry.
It's not an
I was going to
absurd-
go calm. I was going to go calm today. I was. I think they have more than 10 speakers sign up. I bet they just take the first 10. I don't think I'm going to talk to them.
I'm surprised that there's that many. I mean, it's great. I mean, depends, I guess we'll see.
Frank Farmer's here. See Frank Farmer. He used to like coming to the meetings. He would come to the meetings and we'd go outside and like live blog on his phone, to his campaign page. And he'd be like, oh, they're doing disgusting things at the library. That's what he ran on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm very happy with the turnout. I'm very happy with the turnout. New people.
Someone told me about like email about this red, wine, and blue.
Yeah. I think they overlap with Together Greenville. Do you know that Josh went to was a goof on Saturday?
Thank you for coming. Are those folks that are standing along the back wall, are you standing by choice? Okay, I was waiting to get the chair so you can sit down, but I'll be waiting here all day if you're going to stand up, I guess. We'll go ahead and start.
They're rule followers. The lawsuit's kind of scary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we have the invocation of the topic today.
Let us pray. Father, we pray today for your guidance and support as this board work to ensure that our policies provide sound structure to our library system, as well as to all of our constituents that we serve. We pray for all this in thy holy name, Lord. Amen.
Okay, we have a full house today, so let me cover a little bit of housekeeping. We'll need everyone to be respectful of the meeting, and if anybody has any outbursts or anything like that, we'll ask you to leave. And I notice we have some small children, so I'm assuming that they will be okay until they can't take it anymore. I know how they feel. And you're welcome to come and go out the back door there with them. So we have, the first thing we have is approval of the minutes. Did we have anybody had any corrections or anything to the minutes last time? Move to approve. Second. Okay, we have a motion to approve and and a second. Is there any discussion about that? Hearing none, all in favor of the approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye. All opposed? We have Gene, back there on the, phone with a delay. All right, so, covers the minutes. Now we get to the, Library Finance Committee report, and, Danny Rudd.
Okay, thank you so much. The Finance Committee met twice to try to get the budget resolved, and
2 hours twice.
and there was no overtime. But anyway, the first overall budget that came out had raises of like 17% increases, and then it's been reduced down to 8.1. And I'm thinking the overall budget was at 13.1, and it was reduced down at the second meeting to 4.5, and at the, I think then we was asked to move it to 3.0. I think at the standard what we have in our hand right now, Don's gonna talk about, it's down to 1.0. So we're gonna find out from Don, if you come and explain to us the reductions, and if any questions to be asked.
Well, we've got Don here if anybody has any questions about the budget that they have. Now, I know that, a good many of the folks here were also here for the Finance Committee meetings. So some of the questions, have been answered already. Is there, any discussion that, we need to have about the budget?
I do.
Okay, sure.
Well, full disclosure, numbers are not my first language and probably not my second language, but I have gone through everything here. I highly support a financially responsible budget, and I applaud the efforts to do justice for the taxpayers. But I also want to make sure our salaries and our materials, our services, meet the demands of this growing county. But one specific, so I had some concerns about salaries and material cuts. I understand all the deleted items, I guess, are coming out of the, I always forget what you call it, the fund reserve. Okay. The one I didn't understand was a month or so ago, Beck sent around a report about how well the library, the visits of the library. And on that report, one of the things, I think it was like 20 some odd % was an increase in our online presence, our website visits. So I was wondering if someone could tell me why there's a $450,000, almost a $500,000 cut from downloadable items in the materials. If that was such a popular and a growing area of our library, where's that cut coming from?
You want to follow up on that?
You dropped 450,000. We put in originally what we thought we would need. We do have a high demand for downloadables, and our intent was to raise that item $500,000 because our bill for Hoopla is exorbitant each month. So, but as part of following the state library guidelines, so that we're not over 50% and getting that number right to 50%. Well, the request is to get that number right at 15%. In order to do that, that dropped 450 out of the materials line item. So it's going up 50,000 this year compared to last year.
Thank you.
If I can respond, Marsha, I think there might be some confusion with your characterization that we're cutting salaries and cutting the material budget. Both those budget lines went up from prior year. There's no cut. The only thing that got decreased was a decrease from the original proposed budget. Materials is going up 8.1% from the prior year.
Salary increases did reduce, if it started out at 17% overall increase, and now we're down at 8.
The 17% increase was proposed, in the earlier draft of the budget,
Right.
it now has an increase of something less than that, but it's not a cut from last year. No, that reduction was in what was proposed, not in what was paid last year. So there is an increase. All members of staff will have an increase.
But not as much, huh?
That's right,
Okay, that's what I'm doing.
but not as much as,
Not as much as we had proposed from the beginning.
they'll have not as much as what was originally sent up, but they'll have more than what some others would get in different parts of the, I think, I understand that the county may not even have an increase, is that?
Yeah, well, no, we're below the county right now.
No, we're below the county in some of the studies but as far as the increase, our increase could be, I think it's more than what the county's increase would be for employees there, possibly. From my view.
I would echo Elizabeth's comments. There are no cuts in this budget. Everybody's getting a raise. It's just more modest than it would be under the original proposal. Wages are still going up. Materials budget is still going up. It's just not by leaps and bounds. It's by a more modest step, or we're just doing it more modestly.
I'd like to offer an amendment to the proposed budget to reinstate the original proposed compensation adjustment, so the full value of the wage study plus the 4.5% increase. Before we vote on it, I do want to point out the library has consistently been arguably the county's most disciplined investment. If you think of us, we're funded by the county, as are many other organizations. And the county is funded by taxpayers, so ultimately, we do have a responsibility to spend money wisely. The library has been, for probably at least a decade, spending less than it takes in property tax revenues, which has put us in a position where I actually supported the adjustment, for those that weren't here, I supported the adjustment to the millage. I support the idea of isolating capital projects and paying for them out of the capital fund and out of the operating fund, so that we don't unnecessarily institutionalize one-time costs as permanent costs. Those are all very responsible things for us to do. But we are in a very fortunate position because of the level of discipline that we have exercised for quite some time to be able to adjust our employees' compensation to a market rate and take care of them while also making responsible budget adjustments. And I struggle to understand why we would not support that. On the wage side, these are external benchmarks that consistently say across the board that our people are undercompensated. And I understand not paying people when you don't have the money to pay them. And I've had to make that decision in the private sector, and it is horrible. It is horrible to want to pay people more and not be able to, even when they deserve it. I do not understand being in a position where we have the funds to do it, to make all of these other adjustments, and we're just choosing not to.
We have a whole lot of clause, and we're gonna have to clear the room, so if you would keep that. Thank you. So do we have a second on that?
I second that.
Okay, what is the motion that you're making? Is it that it goes back up to the 17-point-something%?
No, we would adjust the compensation, so that's page 3, it's account 10-51110-51120. And I guess I should say all related accounts, because if we adjust wages, we gotta adjust the budget for the taxes associated with those wages. And we gotta adjust materials, because that's pegged to wage compensation expense, unless I'm misremembering, is that accurate? So the amendment is to increase, the budgeted expenses for staff, salaries, and wages to implement the full value of the FY '24 wage study, plus the proposed 4.5% pay increase, which was recommended by our compensation plan, the ECI, the external compensation benchmarks we use. And then we would make any commensurate adjustments that are required, that would be required as a result of adjusting wages, which I think are primarily taxes, materials, retirement, plan contributions as required, because that's all obviously pegged to a wage adjustment.
Okay, so I have some comments on that, but before that, I have some questions for clarification. We've seen two versions of that. One where they implemented the wage study first and then did the 4.5% ECI on top of that. That was a 17% increase. And then there was a proposed change in the next one where they did the ECI first and then they did whatever calculations were needed afterwards to get to the implementation of the wage study. That was, I think, I have to go back and look, but that was a smaller percentage. Which plan are you talking about?
Yeah, I would propose where we do we make the 4.5% adjustment first, and then the ECI calculation would come into play, because to get people adjusted accordingly based on where they are as a result of their post 4.5% increase.
You do realize that's a lower number than we had proposed in this budget?
You mean the last budget?
The
one
one
that you
that
got in
does,
front of you, that was sent last.
if we do the 4.5% and then do the wage implementation on top of that, it's a lower number than we're proposing in this budget.
This isn't the full value of the wage study implementation, though.
No, it's not, that's correct. It's half of the full amount that was originally asked for as part of the 17.5%, which is greater than what they asked for doing the full implementation after the ECI.
So how, if you're doing half of the wage study increase, is that less than doing the whole wage study increase?
The order in which it's implemented.
Correct. I was trying to allow for doing the implementation and then the cost of living increase over a period no greater than 2 years to give people the maximum implementation based on the wage study, if possible, subject to board approval.
Yeah, but you're not, I mean, and we can I'm not opposed to reversing it. I don't think spreading a wage study over 2 years. So if somebody, let's say their compensation is,
Excuse me. Can you finish that sentence? You don't think implementing it over 2 years, were you gonna say is okay or is not okay?
No, I think what I'm saying is if you do half of the wage study this year and then give somebody a percentage increase based on that, right? And then you do half of it next year and then give them a percentage increase, those numbers are not gonna end up in the same spot.
That's right.
Right, because you're doing different bases for that. That's all I'm saying, is I'm not understanding the math of how this could possibly end up being more compensation if we're only doing half. We're only giving half of the base pay increase, the wage, I'll call it wage study increase.
So when we talked about this originally, the reason we had come up with the 50% was we felt that that was a amount we could defend versus the 17%. We were not, I wasn't comfortable, and I think Stephanie and James expressed they also were not comfortable doing if you carve out Blue Ridge and the new increase, the new positions, it's really more like 12%. So we're talking about a 12% increase for staff. That wasn't something we felt we could fiscally, conservatively support, but we do understand the need for competitive wages. We want the library to continue to hire quality employees, and I've been in a position of struggling with that too, I understand that. However, 12% was more than I was comfortable approving, especially since we only had 1 week to see the wage study. That wasn't enough time for me to be comfortable with that. We were designating enough funds in the budget so that when we came back and looked at it and had further conversations, we would have money available to implement it however we decided was best. I don't think we need to, we're able to do all this with just a 1% increase in the budget overall, which is remarkable, and still designate more money in the salary line for the implementation. How we do that is a further conversation, and Dawn and Bev may have recommendations that get us to a little bit lower number like you're proposing, but I'd rather designate more in the salary line than we need, since we can do that with a 1% increase and then go back and implement it responsibly later. And we don't have a 2-year budget. We can, when we look at it next year, maybe we have to designate more than 50% of this number to get to where we need to be, but we can do that next year. So that's where that line, that number came from.
We could, and I'm asking that we do it now. I think this, at the finance committee meeting, it became evident, and I'm assuming we're gonna get there later in this board meeting, and we have been so disciplined that there's gonna be a recommendation on the floor to send $5 million back to the county. That is going to happen in this meeting, I think. I might be wrong, but I think it's coming. And I think it's really, really difficult to say, like, to make the fiscal responsibility argument and say we can't afford this, or it's not wise, when we can put up or shut up when it comes to being fiscally disciplined, and we're about to, because that's reducing millage by a significant amount and sending $5 million back to the county. I don't think any other county organization is going to be doing that or has the ability to do that. So I do not think that it is inconsistent. I think the inconsistent position is saying that a market-based raise for our people based on multiple third-party studies, saying that is fiscally irresponsible just doesn't jive if you're in a spot where you can send $5 million back to the county. I mean, clearly we are fiscally responsible.
That's fine. Our objective was to provide the funding for salaries needed to enable a partial implementation. When I ran the numbers, that looked like a more generous version, but you made your amendment as long as everyone understands that your version is reducing that line. So would that also reduce the materials line as well by the requisite 15%?
No, I don't, let's go back to the original budget amount. I think there's some confusion here. I think that was the packet sent on 3/11, right?
Yes.
All right, so the total proposed comp in the original budget was 10.8 for the original proposed budget to the finance committee. As proposed was 10.8 for full-time, 1.9 for part-time, and then there's $90,000 for compensated absences, which is just a 3-year historical average based on actual compensated absences. So that total salaries and wages was 12.8. This number is 11.8. And when you say it's less, are you referring to the 319 proposed budget?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to. Which one are you referring to? Is there a name for the budget?
That one was literally just called, the original one was called,
That was one sent to the finance committee.
it was just called budget draft. It doesn't have a number, I think at that point. I guess it would be the first draft.
Yeah, 311.
What was the total increase?
The total increase is 17%. That includes the new positions.
So is that's when that, my understanding is that implements the wage study first and then the 4.5 ECI. Is that your amendment?
So the second one we have, which I think is called alternate budget, has 10.1 million for full-time, 1.7 for part-time. The compensated absences number doesn't change. So you're at 11.995 in total comp.
That's not the use.
That's not, I'm walking all the way through, I'm getting there. And then the second alternate, which is the one we have, which came out of finance committee, has 10.0 in full-time and 1.7 in part-time. Compensated absences number, still the same. So it's 11.8, but it includes, the original wage study amount from the original budget, the proposed, pay increase for the ECI was 4.5%, which was $465K. And then the wage study adjustments were $644,000. And this second alternate budget that we have is a 3% increase, which is $263K. Sorry, let's call that first amount. It's $1.1 million roughly. And then the second alternate budget has a 3% pay increase, is $260K, and wage study increases of a $211K. So I'm trying to understand how the 470 that we have in front of us is less than, I mean, it's certainly less than the original 1.1 million, but in the middle, I'll call it the middle budget, let's call it the first alternate budget, had pay increase of 408K and wage study adjustments of 235K. So that's 640,000 roughly compared to the proposed 470. So I guess I'm not understanding how this amount is less.
Okay, rather than, talking about more or less or whatever, what number is it that you expect to see in the line that says total salaries and wages under your motion?
Yeah, I'm off my amendment, and I may have gotten the order wrong, but my amendment is to basically reinstitute the originally proposed amount, which is a 4.5% FY 26 increase based on the employment cost index, plus the adjustments for the FY 24 wage study, in accordance with our current compensation plan.
That didn't answer the question.
Yeah, so the full-time staff number would be 10,820,229. The part-time staff number would be 1,944,134. Compensated absences, that number, it's the same in every budget, so it would be the same. And then we would have any commensurate changes, which would be an adjustment in materials, an adjustment in employer share, FICA tax, all that stuff.
I'm sorry, but that number, that the fiscal FY 26 budget change over FY 25 for the line item, total salaries and wages, what is that number under your proposed amendment?
The bold number in the book, 12,854,863. 12 million.
No, I'm sorry, not the amount, the percentage, take the column. Fiscal year.
Yeah, the total comp and wages increase, including new positions, which includes 5 new employees for Blue Ridge plus 3 new positions, is 17.2%.
Okay, you wanna go back to the, so that's back to the original budget that was.
Yes, right.
That's not the original one, that's the second one.
No, the one that was sent to the finance committee as just a proposal that we all talking about, is, was it 17.2% for an increase in wages?
I do not support this amendment. Obviously, I think it's pretty clear I don't support it. What we're attempting to do is we're basically giving 2 raises. We're adjusting everybody's salary to a certain level, and then on top of that, we're saying, now we're gonna multiply it by 4.5%.
May I, 4.5% of the median, so for new employees, it's more like 6%.
Exactly. So the numbers just keep going up. I don't think this is fiscally responsible. I don't think it's what we should be doing. I'm all for giving raises to those who need them, but this is just blowing the bank for no reason. And I don't support that amendment. Secondly, I don't believe, we have a big problem here, and that's called county council. The county council is not going to, in my opinion, buy into a 17% library pay increase. They're just not gonna do it. So you have to cross that hurdle when they reject our budget and when they send it back to us and say, we will not approve that. Now we're back to the drawing board. So let's be responsible, come back with a modest increase, one that can pass all parties, and then we don't have to run that risk of getting rejected.
It's not gonna do the employees any good to send a budget up there that they're not gonna pass. Is that what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The employees want to raise, but there's people above us that would reject this budget offhand, and we're not being responsible by sending a budget that will not
The
pass.
story that's out there though is that, we're cutting salaries and we're cutting everything, and that, one of us is Elon Musk or something, and as a result of that, the library is going to, suffer severe cuts in the, payroll and all that. None of that's true. You see right here from the one that was proposed, it was 8.1% increase in the, salaries and wages line. Some of that is, Blue Ridge, that would be new employees. That's the reason that number went up, was part of that, but that's a very small part of that. But they are getting a cost of living, basically a cost of living increase, in salaries, as well as part of the ECI. What does that stand for? I can't ever remember.
Employment Cost Index.
Yeah, it's a governmental employee cost index.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
the 3% is based on CPI. The original proposed 4.5% is based on ECI.
so we took instead of CPI, we took the ECI, which is a higher increase.
The out of finance committee, it came out at 3%, which is CPI.
I said,
Because the compensation plan was calling for the recommendation of a 4.5% increase based on the median, which gives 6% increases to people who aren't close to the median, which is twice as much as first responders got last year. And I felt like that was unjustified, not because of performance, but I don't think there's support for it. I don't think inflation matches that.
okay.
I think it's kind of funny that only in government settings or anything where we can stack a raise upon a raise in 1 year. Nowhere in the private sector do they give you a raise and then say, well, that's not enough, we'll give you another raise.
Is there any other discussion about?
Elizabeth, could you explain, again, just how the wage studies included in this project, like the phase-in?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so what the intention was when we did it was, first of all, there were kind of 2 legs to this chair. One was dealing with, there wasn't a lot of time to see the wage study, and I know the executive directors reached out to everyone and invited them in to see it. I don't know who's seen it and who hasn't, but we were given a budget with a 17% increase. If you cut out Blue Ridge and the new positions, like I said, it still ends up at about 12%. That seemed like a huge thing to approve with just 1 to 2 week notice and enough time to look at it. What we had proposed was 3% cost of living increase based on CPI. That number comes straight from the South Carolina Department of Revenue and Festival Affairs. That's not a number I made up. They say it's 2.95, so we rounded up to 3%. Then what we did is we took the full amount that the director and staff had said they would need for implementation with the 17% increase and reduced that by 50% and designated that in the salary line for future implementation over a period no greater than 2 years. I don't pretend to know how it would be implemented. That would have to come up over further discussion. Definitely open to input, and I'm open to the suggestion that got sent to us as far as doing full implementation this year after the increase. We can do that within the budget that we approved out of finance. However, I was not comfortable with the 12%, but if we did the 50% of the full amount, I knew that we could at least implement it over 2 years.
It's probably worth noting, 12% is a lot, so I think there is something we agree on there. But the reason the wage adjustments are so sizable is because we are significantly behind the market in how we're compensated. So I agree with you, it's a lot to choke down. I do think it's a big number, and it's tough. I think the good part of it is we can actually do it. Lower our millage, which is like a permanent cut, right? So we could, that millage rate, it's about, the millage reduction is about 1.7 million this year. You can multiply that over 10 years and say that's $17 million less. And that assumes the value of a mill stays flat, which is historically not what has happened. We live in a thriving county where the value of the mill continues to go up, and there's no promise that'll happen. But ultimately, we can do what I consider to be a highly responsible thing and ask the county to approve our budget, but also recognize, hey, we are taking some really big steps, which is we're asking for permanently less millage, which is less dollars permanently, and we're saying, hey, we've been really wise with what you've given us. We've saved a bunch of it. Here's $5 million of it back, and we can actually use the rest of the savings fund to pay for this increase. So I think it is like it's not, I don't think it's irresponsible. I think it's actually saying, hey, we've saved the money to pay for this increase over time, and we can pay for it out of the savings fund. It's not like we're having to ask taxpayers for more money or anything like that. In fact, we're asking them for less permanently. I see that as a fiscally responsible thing. Maybe others don't, but I think it's a different story if we're going to the county saying, hey, we need more money, or you gotta give us more millage, or, all those things. I think that would not be fiscally wise, but I do think this is a little bit of a different scenario where we have a very different position.
I disagree. I don't think that our revenues should drive our expenditures. I think if we are in a position where we knew we needed more money and the only way to get that was to ask the county for more money, I'd be very comfortable going and making that argument. By that same token, I don't look at our piggy bank, as it's sometimes called by this group, and say, oh yeah, we have the money, let's go ahead and increase salaries. I don't think that's responsible. I don't think that's good decision making. The problem with the minimums didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in one budget cycle. This is a deeply rooted problem with our compensation plan, which I've spoken about. I don't think it's something that we can correct in just a single budget. I think that we need to vote based on what we know are reasonable expenditures for this year. We have to vote on an amount that we can justify. I can't justify 12%, and I don't intend to. I can justify the number that we have in the budget that results in just a 1% increase overall. And so I will not be voting for that amendment.
I would second the comments of Elizabeth there. She was right on. And what we're not looking at here also is we're forgetting about the materials. Like, if we go back to the original comp plan that he's trying to, implement here, that brings up our materials quite considerably too. That's a 17% increase in materials. And so it's one step on.
No. It's 15% of 17%.
The original budget.
Materials are 15% of wages, so it's not a dollar for dollar adjustment.
The original budget percent pay raise and also had a 17.1% increase in materials. So you're gonna knock that down to a hard 15%?
No, it's, the percentages, yes, but the dollars are not, it's not, so a dollar in wages translates to 15 cents in materials.
So what I'm getting at is when you increase wages, you're not only increasing wages, you're legally increasing other line items in your budget that are, to me, unnecessary.
He's right about that, there would be a 17% increase in the wages.
Well, it's
Even though
it's a
15%.
fixed percentage, so they've got to move together. I mean,
How much
that's-
would it
yeah.
go up?
That's a 20. Does that make a dollar increase would be a dollar increase there too?
No, a dollar increase in wages is a 15%, 15 cent. That's not what you said though. A dollar in wages is 15 cents in materials. It's not dollar for dollar.
But a dollar increase in the wages, which would be in that 17%, would equate to a 17%. We can't pay workers more because then we'd have to buy more books. That has to be.
Correct. So if you raise wages by, what is this, a $700,000 adjustment, depending on which budget you're looking at. Well, let's just look at the original one. Let's see. So the original was $1.5 million, which, by the way, just so everybody knows, this alternative budget had, first alternative budget had a wage increase, I think, of 12% total. Excuse me, 9.3. The second alternative budget has a wage increase of 7.7. So if you increase, the original budget called for a total increase in comp of $1.5 million, which included 8 new positions. So the 17% number that is being thrown around is not a 17% wage increase. I think everybody knows that, but just to be clear, nobody's getting a 17% wage increase. That's total wage expense, which includes 8 new positions, which is probably, I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but I would guess somewhere between $250,000 and $400,000 in comp for all those positions. Maybe higher in some of those. Yeah, I'm not sure the details.
Delivery staff was 2.8% of that number on the budget that you have in front of you, so it's 70% is not what everybody's getting, but it's 70% increase in salary.
Total, yeah, it's because we're adding positions plus a sizable wage increase, that's right. But, so if you assume that's $1.5 million of expense, right, of additional full-time wage expense, and then there's, another, call it $350 for those that are part-time positions. So it's about 1.8 total. So then if you're looking at materials expense, it's 15% of that. So that's what, $270,000 roughly in additional materials expense. If you fund the full, the 15% requirement.
What do you mean by materials? You talking about library materials or the associated?
Yes. That are paid, the requirement that we spend 15%.
Of our library. So how much would the budget go up total, Joe, with your proposed amendment?
So the original amount is 12.8, and it's a $1 million increase in salaries and wages expense compared to the second alternate budget, or proposed amount. The original amount was 12.8. The second alternate budget has 11.8.
Does that account for the other associated costs like FICA and retirement benefits?
No, I said that's wage expense.
Does it account for the additional materials we would have to buy to be within the 15% minimum?
No.
So you can't tell us what our budget
We can do the math right now. So it's $1 million of wages, 15% of that's 150 grand. So it's 100, that puts you at 1.1. And FICA is 7.65, so that's call it 71,000. So that's about 220 between the 15%, 7.65%. So that puts you at like 1.2 million. And then the retirement, no, you can't estimate because, some of those positions that may be an increase in retirement, some of it may not, but I think that's like 18-ish%, 18.65, is that right? 75? 56. All right, that's pretty close. So it's 18.56%, so that's 180 grand roughly, 100, let's call it 190 coming up. So you're at $1,310,000, $410,000, so you're 220, and you're at 190. So if you round that up, you can call it $1.5 million. I think that's probably a pretty safe estimate. That does not include the impact of any salary lapse or anything like that, which would reduce the net wage expense, and it's consistently run between $250,000 and $500,000. Which, considering we will not hire all 8 new people on July 1st, I think there could be a sizable contingent. When do we expect Blue Ridge to open? When do we expect Blue Ridge to open?
We're not sure, the contractor's predicting mid-June, they'll turn the building over to us and then shelving them for internal folks.
I'll just reiterate my point, I just don't think this amendment is conservative, in my judgment, I can't support it, and I think we're asking for trouble, we're asking for our higher ups to take it back and say, we're not gonna approve this, and it's reckless in my opinion. We're asking for trouble.
What do you think, because I asked you this question in the last finance committee meeting, and you didn't answer it, so I'm gonna ask it again. What do you think, you were very open about talking to county council, which I think is great. What do you think they will approve? Because right now it feels like we're negotiating against ourselves. Like, I understand we gotta get a budget approved, but it's like we have this boogeyman of they won't approve it, but what are they willing to approve? Because I don't know, I'm not actually increasing total expenditures. It's just.
But you are, actually.
But we're not asking the county for more dollars, right? So we have money set aside to fund this already. So, and we're gonna send the county $5 million back. So,
That hasn't been approved yet.
it hasn't, but you guys are going to, there's going to be at least a vote on that. And the point is we can do that. So whether we vote to do it or not is a different discussion, but I think it is a reasonable compromise to say, hey, yeah, we want to be fiscally responsible, we're gonna send you a bunch of money back that we saved, and in exchange for that, we'd like to adjust our people to market rate comp. So I totally get, James, I'm with you, I don't love it either, but the mechanics of the ECI, which only adjusts every 3 years, we made a conservative decision to only make adjustments to compensation bands every 3 years. Many state and local governments that use the ECI make that adjustment every year. So I would contend that we have been not overly conservative. I think we have very strong conservative bona fides on the comp side, but as a result of that, when we see what happens over the last 3 years and just what's happened with inflation and wages in general, we do get a little behind, and that does make it kind of painful in terms of percentage numbers. I totally get that, but that's a result of our conservatism over time piling up. And I would argue that that's why we can make the adjustment, send money back, ask for less millage, and still get people to the right levels and be totally stable financially. That is a reflection of how conservative and disciplined we have been with the money we've been given.
If I may, Joe, I think you just said we're not increasing expenditures, we're not asking for any more money. Did you mean we're not increasing revenues?
We're increasing expenditures, but we're not asking for additional money from the county, yes.
Okay,
But
I
one
think
more
everybody,
question,
yeah, go ahead.
and probably for Beth, but, I I understand what Joe's saying, we kind of got misquoted because maybe we were too conservative and now we're trying to catch up. With a 3% pay increase and it says potential adjustments, I'm gonna, so if we have half of the wage study now, does that bring us to somewhat of a competitive salary and wages for positions with other?
It gets us closer, but we're still growing.
The,
And the way
it
it's
might be
written is-
written in as potential, but it's really not potential, because we are approving the money for the implementation of it. We are approving the money, it's not a potential approval. All we're saying is that in 2 months, when we have some more time to discuss and think about it, then we can actually vote to approve that money that we've already allocated for this purpose. So we're not potentially, putting money on, we're actually approving that money.
I was just wondering if it puts the libraries in a position to be more competitive and to start catching up, because we should be competitive.
Yeah, no, it gets us closer, like you said, we're getting there.
I think we can argue that anything that increases salaries makes us more competitive, and this does increase the salaries.
Are we, so when, I'm confused about, because the original wage study amount was 644, 324 for full-time, and then it was 158, 842. So that's 820,000, between full and part-time. And we're proposing in the second alternate budget, 211 for full-time and 71,000 for part-time, so that's 280. So I'm struggling with how 280 is half of over.
We're proposing 322,000, not 280. We're proposing higher than that.
What am I missing? Because this says wage study 211,537, and then it says wage study 71,596.
Just let Deb talk.
Yeah, in the first original budget, the salary wage study is applied before that budget ECI.
You're including both in the wage study number.
Was that?
Is the 600 include both of those adjustments, the wage study plus the 4.5, or is it only the wage study amount?
Only the wage study for full-time. So there's total $803,000 adjustments in wages in the original budget, apart from the ECI 4.5. In the second alternate budget, the pay raise was adjusted to 3%, and if you apply the 3% pay raise first, it drops the needed adjustments down to 283. That's full-time adjustment.
And does is that how the ECI contemplates, or does it not really contemplate the order when it provides a recommended pay adjustment? If we do it, so the wage study, and then there's the wage study and then the ECI, I guess what I'm asking is, if we reverse the order, obviously a pay increase is helpful compared to not, but if we reverse the order, are we going to be here again in, let's assume everything else stays the same, but in 3 years, we're gonna be here again because we haven't fixed the salary compression that we are trying to fix because we didn't actually make all the adjustments.
If you're looking at just the wage study, that was done in 24. Last week, that was on last week, got final results. Past the time for the budget. So at that point, they compared our salaries and wages to the county and to other peer libraries. They said that they need to make these adjustments. That's where the $800,000 number came from. We've gone through last year a pay increase of just a normal annual pay increase. And if we go through another one of those this year, identify the wage studies, yes. The effect of that waters down what was needed a year ago, comparing this to what our peer salaries were a year ago. So it just dilutes it a little bit. So does it get us closer? Yes, it gets us closer. But it's leave us a little behind still, yes.
Okay,
So, I'm sorry, just because there was a question on it, can we clarify that the budget in front of us, the amount designated for the implementation of the wage study is $322,162 for full-time, and it is $79,421 for part-time. That is in the budget that passed by committee. And that's after that's in addition to the money needed for the 3% pay increase.
I don't understand your point, I'm sorry.
What budget are you looking at? Is that not the?
And the budget that came out of the finance committee on last week.
I gotta get some control of this, because this is just, you know, everybody back there is just flying around if there anything. So, I think the motion, to get back to it, is to go back to what was the original proposed numbers under the, as far as salaries and wages, and everything else that affects. Does everybody agree that that's the motion?
That is the
Yeah,
motion.
that is the motion. I think Elizabeth's trying to clarify, because, what, can you tell me the title of that PDF? Because,
FY '26 proposed operating budget based on library board finance committee actions, March 19, 2025.
got it, so this, all right, so it's not the second alternate budget document. I think she was trying to clarify, I had asked about
That's okay,
these numbers, and she was saying that different from a different budget.
I'm trying to stay out of the rabbit holes at this point. So, so if everybody understands that the motion on the table, the finance committee brought the budget that the finance committee had passed. And the motion was made by Joe, seconded by Kim, to basically take the salary and wages line and everything that's affected by that back up to the amount that was in the original budget that was submitted to the finance committee, which showed a 17.2% increase in the salaries and wages line, whereas on the one that you have in front of you, just so we're looking at apples and apples, all right? The one in front of you says 8.1%. Does everybody understand that is the change? Everybody nod your head or nod it back and forth, whatever, shake it or not, I guess is what you say. All right, so that is what I understand to be the motion. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct.
Okay, all right, I think we're very clear on where everybody stands on that spoke on that. I would appreciate if somebody would call the question, and we could vote on it.
Question.
All right, so everybody's in favor of Joe's amendment that's been seconded by Ken. Let's raise your hand, because we got some on both sides, so we won't be able to tell. Okay. We got 1, 2, 3. Gene, you voting yes or no?
I'm voting no.
Okay. All right, everybody who wants to keep the budget as it was coming out of finance committee then, and not adopt the amendment, raise your hand.
This is only a vote on the amendment.
This is only a vote on his amendment. Okay?
5, 6, 7, 7. Is that correct?
Did you?
I'm counting them.
We should only have 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay. All right, so the amendment fails. But that is not to say that there is no increase being paid to staff. I want to make that clear, because the story out there is not that. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would call the question on the original budget that's before us, presented by the finance committee.
Okay. Anybody want to second that?
Second. I think it's 6.6, by the way, it's the percentage increase. In terms of actual wage increases.
You mean, 6.6 is.
In our proposed budget, yeah.
Because what
You said it's not flat. I'm saying if you strip out the new employees and just the wage piece.
No, thank you.
6.6.
Yeah. So there's actually a 6.6 increase in wages.
That's not the 8.1 number you mentioned, that's not total comp, that's for the current.
And what he's saying there is the 8.1 number includes an increase in wages that the library will pay next year because we are adding some staff at the new Blue Ridge branch. And when you add that into the total salaries number, the salaries number increases, but that's not to say that all the staff gets an increase of 8.1%. The staff increase would be closer to 6 point. We're not exactly sure what, because it's spread over the ranges of what staff are paid in their particular pay group. So we can't say, everybody gets this number. That doesn't happen like that. Yeah, we're adding positions, as well to the other branches other than Blue Ridge. Okay, so, we called the question, let's vote on the proposed budget from Finance Committee. Is there any other discussion that we need to have, or James has asked the call the question, so I guess we'll have to question. Is there any other amendments to what came out of Finance? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and vote. Yeah.
The budget includes the reduction in millage. Can we make sure everyone's clear on that?
You said, okay, the difference is that, it's already been taken into account in the budget?
That passed in part of the budget, correct?
Yeah, so make it clear that it was I thought we were gonna handle that as a separate point, but if it's in the agenda, but, we have the half a million. Right, but the hurdle is that the budget has a half a million. What she's talking about is, on the agenda today, it was, proposed that we would, because of the excess fund balance that we have, we were going to lower our millage rate, that we receive because we're overfunded, based on the last few years of budget surpluses that we've had. And,
It's really fun.
some of you would say that, if we're overfunded, we should just spend it on whatever we want to. We don't have that luxury, not that I would do that if I had it, but, we spend our money based on, what is necessary and best to spend it on. And, we can't go up with huge amounts because we're not doing this in a vacuum in this library. We're part of Greenville County, and there's lots of other things that happen in this county that will be affected by it. So, what we did was, when we proposed this budget out of Finance Committee, Kim could speak to this, but this included a $500,000, and those of you who aren't math nerds, as Joe self-confessed he was at an earlier meeting, $500,000 is, when the tax bill comes out, and it's got a certain amount of millage that's applied to each person's property that's being taxed. And we're proposing that we reduce what the library takes in millage that's approved for everyone across the board in Greenville County. Whenever they pay their tax bill, a certain part of that comes out, and it's based on millage. And the millage that we get, we're proposing in this budget that it be reduced by 1/2 of 1 mil. So that will be a later, we can do it, I guess we'll just do it now. Well, there's a question on this, so I think, it's It's in the budget, so when you're voting on this budget, I guess you're voting for that $500,000 reduction, be the easiest way to do it. Yeah, and it's already been taken into account in this budget as well. So the revenue side is come down in this budget based on that $500,000 reduction that we talked about, all right?
But, even with reduced mill, we're still taking in more revenue than we did previous budget. We're projecting.
That's correct, even with a $500,000 reduction. I will say that, I looked at reducing the millage more than $500,000, and based on the expected expenses and things that we have going on, it was not prudent to do more than $500,000 because we were gonna run in the red, in 2 or 3 years. So, not 2 or 3 years. What was it, 5?
Yeah, it was a long way. We would be running a deficit on our budget for 6 years, and I think we felt that was improved.
Yeah, I can't remember, we ran so many numbers. So anyhow, with regard to this budget in front of us, with that $500,000 reduction included in it. So thanks for reminding me of that. Everybody in favor of this budget in front of you, let's go with that, say aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you, Gene. We got a unanimous, for the budget in front of us now. All right. We got a request for use of contingency funds. That's the, you got contingency funds request?
But I see it's on you.
The first one that the finance committee approved was money to replace the generator on the Brooklyn bill. And the second was, what was it on?
Was for completing the collection purchase.
Oh, that's right. You all had several years ago, you had designated funds for the collection for the new Blue Ridge Library. We need to draw $150,000 for that to,
Go ahead and get that. Go ahead and start buying those.
yeah, we've been buying materials and we're at the point now where we need that money to continue to purchase materials for that new library. And the figure for the generator, I think, was in 12,000, 14, sorry. You vote on them individually, or you can vote on them at the same time, either way you want to do the motion.
Let's go, with them together, in the interest of time.
Do you need a motion for that, or?
It came out of committee, so, yeah, we're good. Thank you. So, all those in favor of the contingency expenses, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Aye. All right. I'm taking that wasn't an opposition, right, Gene?
That's a positive.
Thank you. Okay, Bev has some handouts, as part of her executive, report, executive director's report, that, you all can read in your spare time.
Pack of bookmarks and then the latest event guide for your perusal. That's all I have.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to start coming up with a bookmark for Hoopla books, at the rate that they're being, checked out over the other. The new business is transfer from operating fund balance. We have some discussion about, transferring some funds to the capital account. Is there anybody who, want to make a motion regarding that?
We settled on the total dollar amount, what the dollar amount, what are we?
$5 million?
We're talking about that, or we're talking about the capital expenses for some of them?
I'm talking about going from operating to capital fund.
No,
No.
just transferring undesignated fund balance.
I would move to transfer 5 million from operating to capital.
Undesignated, yeah, sure. All right, we got a second on that? Second, all right.
What's it for?
We're transferring $5 million from undesignated fund balance to the capital fund balance.
For what projects?
Not for a project, it's undesignated. It's moving it out of our operating fund into capital funds.
And the reason for doing that is,
We will-
it's for good faith to the county. See, I got more money than we need.
No, we've got the money, it's really just a movement from operating to capital. And we won't have to ask for any capital funds in the future based on, what we have in the hopper to do and what we expect things to cost. And by moving them, their excess funds in the, undesignated fund balance in the operating side, moved over to, capital fund balance. So future capital needs.
Is the plan to reduce the capital account millage to 0?
No.
Are we gonna lower it?
Is that an
Yeah.
amendment, Joe?
I'm just trying to understand, are we gonna ask for a reduction in capital account millage?
And we're asking for the, reduction to be on operating side.
I know, this is just discussion, I personally would prefer to wait to move money from the fund balance to the capital project fund until we have projects to assign, as East North Street. We have enough money already for East North Street.
Yeah, and then we have to plan for potential other branches or,
We currently have enough money in the fund for Blue Ridge, East North Street, and the Travelers Rest expansion.
No,
done.
no, we don't.
That was in the, what was the document that we
No,
got?
we got roughly, I think it's around $8 million in that account. At the end of, once we finish Blue Ridge this year, we'll have roughly 8.8 million in there. That's before taking into account East North Street. So we are gonna run short there, depending on the scope of the budget of the project for East North Street, or anything private or, southern, branching southern part of the county, we decide to do that. Well, we will be short based on this. In the past years, our budget had been, or that fund had been increasing, but now, we didn't really have any proven projects after East North Street, after the road. And now we've got Blue Ridge, that's, some few million away, and so between these projects that we have confirmed for sure, East North Street in some way or doing something, and if we do that, then we are gonna run short.
I had requested a list of capital projects in the fund balance, and Bev, the one that you sent to all of us, showed that for fiscal year 2030, with the projects I just mentioned, we had a $5 million net positive in that account for fiscal year 2030 with Blue Ridge, East North Street, and an addition at Travelers Rest Branch. Is that not correct?
Does that have that has the annual additions though in it, right? Does it, or does it not? Does it have like annual millage in there?
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. Don's saying we don't have enough now.
There
Not.
is, Elizabeth, if you look at that same sheet you're referring to,
Yeah.
you look at the bottom, FY 27, FY 28, we're down to 1.5 million right now. That's dangerously low. These are estimates, but these projects not being, so it's in red in that account.
And I'm just proposing we wait until that moment to transfer the funds to the account. There's a motion on the floor, I'm not making an amendment, I'm just making a comment.
Yeah, I got a motion and a second, yeah, so you're not in favor of doing it at this time. Yeah, the other thing we're talking about doing is doing some of these, major projects like the changing the media in here, thank you, Jed. And doing that as a capital project instead of as an item on the operating side.
we would be able to do that in the budgets going forward, right? Try to identify upgrade items that are infrequent and do them as capital expenditures, which keeps us from institutionalizing infrequent expenditures.
Yeah, new generator for this building was the other thing that we've gotta get, it's 20 years old now. Okay, so,
Move the $5 million.
the motion on the floor is to move $5 million from operating to capital.
Okay,
It's not going anywhere,
okay.
just on the books. And then we can tap out of it for whatever we're doing capital-wise. All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Okay. Is that one?
I'm gonna vote against my own motion.
Is that two or three? Oh, just a, okay. All right.
I just made the motion for, discussion purposes, but I voted against my own motion.
Okay. Okay. Any other business before the board today?
I would like to make a motion, even with reducing the millage half a mil, we still have over 100% of our reserve or fund balance.
There it is.
And, I just don't think, that's not being used for taxpayer services. We looked at reducing it a mil to try and eat that down more, but that's a reduction in perpetuity that really I'm not sure that the library can sustain. So we've talked about a lot of different things for trying to kind of get that fund balance being used for the community and for tax services. I had planned to make a motion to return $5 million from our fund balance to the county to be used by county council for taxpayer services. There's a question about the legality of that, so I would like to make a motion that we take $5 million from our reserve fund contingent on confirming its legality and returning it to county council. I've run the numbers multiple times, even reducing the millage and returning $5 million, we still have 80% of our operating expenses in the fund balance. That is very generous, very healthy, probably too healthy. Ever since, this is my 4th budget cycle. The very first one, a member of the finance committee brought up concerns about our fund balance getting too high. That has come up every finance meeting we've had, every budget cycle we've gone through, every time we have an audit report, there's questions about that. It is known our fund balance is high, and that is, to Joe's point, it is a comment on our fiscal conservatism, the careful spending of the library. I'm very appreciative of that. So this is not to put anyone down. This is a good thing. It's just a reality that we have had this. It has been growing. It continues to grow, and we have $5 million that could be used and is not being used. So that's my motion, but it is contingent on confirming the legality.
Can you remind me how much we need to keep in that fund balance? Because I feel like at the last audit, it was like 123%, and I didn't know what we needed to keep it.
Dawn can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 25 to 35%.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the minimum. That's the minimum. We
What's the max?
won't be even close.
What do we anticipate with the millage adjustment? I'm trying to think through it. You said you're not sure we can sustain the millage reduction. When do we anticipate that becoming? I assume by sustain, you mean like.
A 1 mil reduction. We can sustain the half mil reduction.
Okay, got it. So you're saying that you're not concerned about a half mil, it's if you get a full mil.
I think you understand that. And millage is tricky, like.
Yeah,
just
well,
go
it's
in and
like,
say,
what's
we
the
want-
growth rate, right? Like,
Right.
if Greenville property values keep growing like bonkers, then we could probably sustain more than we think, because the value of the mill goes up so much, but.
I hope Stephanie doesn't mind if I put her on this spot a little bit. She asked me, she's like, well, can't we just tell them we need less? And we can't just go and say we need 5 million less, like,
Right.
we can't do that. We have to try to project based on what we think. And Joe, I know I'm not telling you anything we don't know, just for the conversation. We have to project we can't project how much property values will go up. We can make an educated guess based on prior years. We can look around and kind of see what the growth has been. The reality is that the growth has been significantly more than library expenditures have gone up, and that's just the reality. And so we can't, I mean, I would love to do a full mill reduction and with Alan on that, but I just don't think we can. That's a little risky, as far as going, I mean, we would definitely have way more than we needed in the fund balance to pay for the deficit, but I am not sure I'm someone who wants to be doing a 6-year deficit in our operating expenses. But 5 million, I've talked to some people, and there's a feeling, I think, that 5 million, we know the amount, that's really kind of $1.5 million. So it'd be like if we had done the millage reduction 5 years ago. So we're just doing the rebate now to make up for the fact that we collected more over the last 3 to 5 years than we thought we would.
With money being moved to our operations, what does that do to our fund balance?
You mean as far as the percentage?
Yeah, total doesn't change, because the fund balance is cumulative between the two funds.
Which I must say, so I mean, the 126%, that includes the capital project fund as well. It's not,
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to, like, I'm want to make sure we get things that we requested, the library requested to get done here. Completed, since we have those funds. And then I was confused because Dawn was saying, you know, in Blue Ridge, Travelers Rest, North Street, that there's enough money in the fund balance and also to get $5 million.
I'm sure the number of 5 billion, I mean, what made 5 billion be the ideal number to give them? And then, does council, is this something council wants us to do? Put 5 billion back, I just don't understand.
I don't think anyone here has talked to anyone on council about this number. 5 million, it is reasonable, it's a round number.
That's nice, very nice.
It's not, like I said, it's if I took about $1.5 million, because when I was looking at $500,000, and projecting, and felt like that was a little bit, anemic, it wasn't really gonna eat down our fund balance, so.
It might help to state, if the $500,000 reduction that we're talking about is $500,000 going forward. And she's looking at if we had done what we should have done, which is give back $500,000 5 years ago, giving $5 million back would be as if we had reduced the village 5 years ago, when the problem first started to be seen.
It just seemed very unorthodox to be saying, we have too much money, let me give you some more money back. And hopefully that'll clear everything up, make us play pretty together. I just don't like that. That seems totally against everything that I could even think of.
It's taxpayer money now, right? And, it's been sitting in an account unused, and we're saying to the taxpayers, you guys can use this money now for something that a lot of people have probably not.
And one of the things that, the reason she's talking about the legality of it is, there is it's a state statute, I believe, regarding, isn't it a state statute?
It was the state law establishing the authorities of county.
Yeah. So, it says that if the counties, set up an amount to be taken from the taxpayers through the use of millage, like we've been talking about, and they do that for the purpose of libraries, then that money has to be used for libraries. And, so that would be.
That's understandable.
Yeah, so if we give it back to county council, it's money that was collected from the taxpayers for libraries, but given back to county council, and they wouldn't be able to do anything with it except use it for library. But there's some question about whether that is, I'm doing that off the top of my head, that's not a strict reading.
It sounds like it.
So that's the reason for it might not be legal to give money back to county council, and so I would rather, not give the money back to county council, but give it back to the taxpayers in the form of a
Well, let's watch us.
That's the turning off my phone. In terms of giving a, less of a millage, that we have going forward.
I like doing that.
Yeah, but the problem is that we can't, the 5 million, the reason 5 million works is because we can do that without a lot of pain in the future. If we reduced our millage by that $500,000 that we shouldn't have been collecting for the last 5 years, in addition to the $500,000 that we've already agreed that we've asked for a reduction, it would be a full mill and that is gonna leave us in the red, for too long. It starts shrinking our excess fund balance that we have. We're supposed to have, what everybody's talking about is, we're supposed to have what we expend, we're supposed to have a rainy day fund, then that's the excess fund balance, that's the way your mother used to say it, is a rainy day fund of 25 to 35%. The state law, right, requires that.
I don't think it's the state, it's the county recommended.
I think she said, I'm sorry, not state law, too many laws and recommendations around here. So, it's recommended that we have 25 to 35% of what we spend annually, in our operating budget. We have, 3 times that in our rainy day fund. And so that's the reason that Elizabeth is motivated to try to give some of that back. But the problem is, when she gives it back, it's not going back to the taxpayer, it's going back to county council, and they'll use it for something, for the county, obviously, and they're not gonna split it up and go on vacation, but not going on to jail.
Is this not the money that we need for Fountain Inn or any of the North Street, any of those projects?
It's undesignated because there is no purpose.
But could that money go toward those projects? Is it needed toward those projects?
It's the excess for a reason. It's not, there is nothing there that's spoken for.
I mean, we certainly could spend it on additional branches or things like that, but we don't have any budget.
I'm pretty
at this
sure
time.
you got some proposed branches that you still looking at. Doing.
Well, we figure someday we'll have something to the southern end of the county, or we're
That would be nice. That's what I like.
Mr. Chairman,
we'll continue to service that.
the procedure, I'd like to second the motion, because it's never been seconded yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm generally I was for the millage reduction, I voted for that, and I think the idea of walking the millage down prospectively, if property, like in the future, if property values continue to increase, more rapidly, makes sense, cause that, the reality is we've been able to, kind of like we were talking on the pay thing earlier, we've gotten more people moving into Greenville County, our villages stayed the same, but we're getting like this double benefit of properties values rising faster than our baseline operating expenses. I think that's really good. My only concern, I'm gonna be opposed to this just because I struggle with the idea I mentioned earlier, which is if this is money designated for libraries, we have an opportunity to make a significant investment for people. We chose not to do that. So maybe we're not gonna spend it on that, but I do think we should hang on to it, and we will have opportunities to spend it. And the biggest opportunity is going to be that, in my mind, that unforeseen rainy day, right? So during COVID, we were able to continue to pay our staff for not insubstantial period of time, right? This was the early days of COVID, right? None of us even knew what COVID was, and there was a big question about whether it spread on the books, right? And I don't know if anybody remembers that, but I do, because we were like, y'all were putting books and like having to let them sit for whatever, 7 days before they could go back in circulation. It was a weird time. And we were able to continue paying everybody and not have our staff totally fall apart, because people had to get jobs somewhere. And so I am in favor of keeping that we are utilizing that money in the sense that we do invest excess funds, and we have earned hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that ultimately goes back into operating account and allows us to do things like millage reductions. So I don't think it's just sitting unused. I think there is a value in money that sits and is not spent for the rainy day. So I think we need to think about that. And that is the time where it's gonna be hardest to get money from the county, is when everybody needs more and property values go down, or we have a rough 2 years. And we've done the hard work over a 12 to 15 years of this board of building that fund to kind of self-insure. And I think we actually are giving the county a tremendous asset, because in that moment, that year where they need to cut something somewhere to make it all work, we've actually provided an ability for that to happen at the library, because we've saved money and can fund what we need to fund.
Let me just get this straight. Are you saying that what the money is doing right now for the benefit of the library is making more money for the library?
No, it doesn't. The library doesn't make money. It makes more money that can be reinvested back into library systems, which serve people in our county and allow us to do things like, we've heard the discussion about Hoopla, which is very expensive, but is a tremendously popular, huge asset for people to be able to download books for free. I mean, that's a tremendous asset for people in the county to use at a, very, very cheap rate. They do pay for it because they pay tax dollars, and none's free here.
So just to provide a little context for everyone on why I'm comfortable, I would rather see a reduction in everyone's taxes than give $5 million back to the county. It's a little bit less of a direct application, but it's just, this is a way to get the money back into tax services. If we return $5 million back for county council to put towards infrastructure or for roads, for context, the county's road paving program is $10 million a year. So we would be giving them the opportunity to increase road paving by 50%. That is a huge benefit to everyone who lives in the county, including library employees. If we did that in 2030, our fund balance would still be 92% of our operating expenses. So we'd still be able to fund the library for almost an entire year with zero tax revenue. That is how generous our fund balance is. So I'm not talking about dipping into some kind of bucket and scraping the bottom to throw some points for the library at the county council. I'm looking and saying, we have $5 million that's undesignated, that is sitting there, that there is unlikely we would even spend it by 2030, and it could be being used right now for real needs in the county that people have, that everyone benefits from. So that's why I made this motion.
Okay,
I'll call a question.
all right, so we have the motion, second, let's call the question, so.
Right?
All right, all in favor of Elizabeth's motion to send $5 million back to county council, let's do this by raising the hands.
Contingent on the legality.
Contingent on the legality, which I don't know why we don't wait until we find out whether it's legal to make this motion, but it is. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Raise your hand, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, all opposed? Gene, where are you, buddy?
Opposed?
I think he's opposed too, so.
Yeah, he'll get both.
We got 11, right? 5 and 4 is
Five.
Who's opposed?
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 Opposed, yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Everybody read it?
Okay. Okay. So the motion fails, for no net. All right. I have, some folks who signed up to speak. Assuming they haven't done from Shearborn. The first person is, Leah Navarro. No, sorry, Navarro. My where I got the B from.
Hi, I'm Leah Narrow. I live in Greenville County, and I've been to multiple library board meetings. In an effort to be accountable to the public, as the public library board, I would ask that you have citizen comments heard prior to voting on issues. While input is ignored if you vote before hearing the public comments. I'm really struggling to have respect for this library board. In every meeting I've attended here, this board has demonstrated a disdain for the Greenville public, especially anyone who isn't white, Christian, or straight. The censoring and banning of books, disallowing all library displays, especially LGBTQ+ issues or Black history, even demanding that a hotline number be removed. I don't get it. I thought library boards were meant to support open, inclusive, welcoming libraries and their staff. This board passes rules that demean our library system and its staff. Greenville is growing and the use of the library system is growing. And as you just discussed, it's getting more expensive to live here. It would make sense to approve a legitimate budget, and if the county council rejects it, then it's your job to fight for it. Your job is to protect library staff. Currently, librarians in Greenville County Library System, this system, make 25% less than other librarians in the state of South Carolina. You're overfunded and voting on giving money back to the county, but not paying your employees a decent wage. It's embarrassing. The minimum you can do is pay staff a living wage and support the experts, the librarians, in making decisions about books and displays in our libraries. Thank you for hearing my comments.
We have, Beth Love.
My name is Beth Love. I'm a retired elementary and middle school teacher. Libraries are essential for our communities, and we have a great city with wonderful amenities. People from all over the world move here. Why would we want to send $5 million back and not preserve our precious library? We do not want to reduce the millage that the library receives. The library should be one of our key cultural resources that is adequately, if not generously funded. The county librarian should be paid adequately. And even with the current increase, they're going to be below the national average. It has been shown by numerous economic impact studies that libraries are not just cultural and economic hubs, they are powerful economic engines that strengthen local economies and enhance the financial well-being. To stay competitive in Greenville, we need to fully fund and support our library. I lived in Spartanburg for many years, and Spartanburg's library system is phenomenal. It's a community showpiece and cultural hub. The librarians there are paid more than the librarians are here. They have a fantastic teen room that students love to go to. My middle school students really thought it was fabulous. There's a great children's department, a maker space where they have all kinds of project tools, classes, and kits. They have an art gallery with regular curated and juried shows. They have twice monthly free music performances with all kinds of musicians. They're opening a planetarium this summer in Spartanburg. Greenville County has 200,000 more people than Spartanburg County. I think the question we should ask is, how can we make the Greenville Library a library fitting for the great town that we live in? We should not defund our library. We need it. Let's pay our librarians competitive living wages. Let's chat with our neighbor library in Spartanburg and figure out how they did it. Maybe a call to Todd Stevens, the county librarian there, might be a good place to start.
Good afternoon. My name is Liz Weber. I'm here today as a parent, also as an educator, and as a proud member of this community to emphasize something that should be non-negotiable: protecting funding for our public libraries. Our public libraries are the heart of our community. They provide free and equal access to knowledge, resource, and opportunities that many would not have otherwise. For families like mine, the library isn't just a place to check out books. It's a place where children develop a lifelong love of learning. My 1-year-old son is already exploring the joy of books through the Drums and Babies program, and it's designed to foster early literacy. As an educator, I've seen firsthand how important library resources are, especially for children from underserved communities. When money is cut, it's these children that are going to suffer the most. They will lose access to summer reading programs that prevent learning loss and digital resources that they need to stay competitive in an increasingly technology-driven world. But this isn't just about families with young children. Our libraries serve everyone. You have claimed today that there is $5 million that is unused, that we have too much money coming in. So use it. Give the library the ability to hire skilled employees at a competitive wage, create more essential programs, and increase access to technology that so many in our community rely on. At a time when South Carolina consistently ranks in the lowest third of the nation for education, we should be expanding our library's ability to reach our students. At a time when misinformation runs rampant on the internet, we should expand our access to vetted information provided to the community by our most educated members, our librarians. At a time when the cost of childcare is so great and parents like myself are forced to choose either career or family, the library is a place to develop parenting skills and for our children to learn how to socialize, for students who need a quiet place to study, for job seekers who need internet access to apply for work, and for seniors and parents like me who rely on the library for community and connection. These proposed cuts are more than an inconvenience, they are a barrier to opportunity. Greenville County has prided itself on fostering growth and opportunity, but cutting the library's budget sends the exact opposite message. Investing in our library is investing in our company and our community's future. A $5 million cut may seem like a way to save money or give it back to the taxpayers in the short term, but the long-term cost is so much greater. We have the money to pay our employees more. We have the money to provide greater services. We have the money to make our spaces even more beautiful, and yet you have chosen today to reduce the millage and give money that we have already had back into the county. So I'm urging you today, reconsider your decisions and work to expand the vital role that our library system plays in strengthening Greenville rather than weakening it. Thank you.
Oksana? I can't read the last name. Oksana Monsiva? Okay. Katie Watts? Katie Watts, okay. Tracy Philpott?
I'm Tracy Philpott, resident of Greenville County and retired chemist. I just wanted to applaud the Finance Committee for being fiscally responsible. I appreciate that you were able to find items to reduce the budget increase by 50%. It's not only important to understand the budget, but the logistics behind implementing the budget, and the Finance Committee has evaluated that carefully. It's disingenuous to imply that wages have been historically low and that a big bump is needed to make the wages competitive, when the wage studies indicate that they have been only slightly lower, and the 3% increase will make the wages competitive. That has been supported by the fact that the jobs advertised are filled and that there is no shortage of staff. A 3% raise is a fair increase and more than many of us in the private sector have received. I appreciate that all that you have done, and thank you very much for being conservative. I support half mil reduction. Thank you. And just one thought is, when you have speakers such as Joe, please bring them to the microphone so that they're all here. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Sheila King was on here, but she was marked through. Is Sheila here? Oh, sorry.
I don't know why they crossed out my name. Thank you. Just 5 years ago, this library system had an $18 million budget. 2 weeks ago, staff asked for $29 million. $10 million more in spending in 5 years. What they did today is just approve $26 million. I was at both 2-hour finance committee meetings. Joe, you skipped one of those meetings. It would be helpful if you attend them and we wouldn't talk so much. That's a 27% increase. So I don't know if they're talking about cuts. It's a 27% increase. Using 2023 numbers from the state library, there are 42 county library systems in the state. Adding together salary and benefits, Greenville ranks number 5 in the state for highest average total compensation per employee. We're ranked number 4 in the state for the highest paid library director. Our library director is the 6th highest paid county employee after the county sheriff. Our starting library salary ranks 18th, right in the middle, without a breakdown in the benefits value. I could not analyze how total compensation compares. Our average starting salary was $41,829 in 2023. For comparison's sake, salary for a titles and licensing specialist at the Greenville DMV is $36,327. The median income in South Carolina for all jobs is $38,153. We don't typically see signs reading we love our DMV workers or county taxpayers, but think about that. County employees also have fixed benefit public pensions. That's something that went away with our grandfather's generation in the private sector. Excellent benefits, including health care, make up for lower salaries in the government sector. That's well studied and well known. It's a trade-off. Someone earning $45,000 as a librarian has to contribute 9% of their salary for the pension plan, and that is significant. However, if they stay a librarian for 30 years, never earning anything more than $45,000, that's highly improbable, and retired at 65, they would have contributed $122,000 to their pension plan, yet be guaranteed $25,000 a year for the rest of their lives. That's over half of their salary. Let's say you live to be 80, that's a $375,000 payout, 3 times the amount of money contributed. South Carolina ranks in the top 20% for the highest percentage of government workers per 1,000 workers. We have consistently been in the bottom 20% of the country for unfunded public pension problems. I couldn't find today's number. The last available indicated South Carolina had an unfunded public pension liability of $25 billion. So thank you for giving the $5 million out of a $26 million budget reserve you're sitting on. By the way, that means they've been asking for too much tax money. It's about time we got it back. We must grow the private sector in order to fund the public. The common good requires it. I can safely say we have the best website for a library in the state of South Carolina. I've been on every single one of them. Let's invest in that. Let's make Greenville Libraries a leader in the country for efficiency and service. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I skipped you here. Somebody straight line on the copier, evidently, that just happened to be today. And the next person is Cass Tyson. Cass Tyson here? No. And Christy Kendrick.
Hello, this is my first ever board meeting, so thank you for having us. And I brought my children along. I just thought it would be helpful to have a glimpse into how my family utilizes the library services. I've been a resident of Greenville County since 2009 and an avid library user since 2014 when my oldest was born. I always kind of associated the library as just a place to check out books, maybe listen to audiobooks if you were lucky. But once I started taking my son to Bouncing Babies as a way for us to bond and meet other parents, I quickly realized our library system has so much more to offer. Sarah McKenzie, the author of The Read Aloud Family, says, "We need our kids to fall in love with stories before they're even taught their first letters, if possible, because everything else, phonics, comprehension, analysis, even writing, comes so much more easily when a child loves books." These baby and toddler classes taught by librarians that brought me into the library don't just fill time for new parents or young kids, but they establish a love of shared stories, which lays the foundation for early literacy skills.
I am truly terrified of what our community would look like if people had less access to these classes due to librarian shortages, primarily because of inadequate pay. Hughes Main Library is the one that my kids and I most frequent, as it's closest to our home, but we have visited just about every library in the county. As a homeschooling family, the library is indispensable to our learning. When we're doing a new unit study, I log into my account, request books on hold to wait for me at this library. They are often spread across the county, and typically within a day or two, I am able to come by and collect all the books I need for teaching my kids. It is not lost on me the time and logistics it takes to fill these requests. This is a vital service that the library offers, and one I fear could be affected if less money and staff are available to meet this need. In addition to checking out books, we regularly attend classes and events led by some awesome librarians that provide my kids with opportunities for learning outside of the home with STEM education, art classes, story times, and social clubs like Lego building. Last January, our family decided to start learning a new language together. We became frequent attendees at Miss Shirley's bilingual story time here on Friday afternoons, where our whole family can hear stories and interact with others in Spanish to practice skills. Last spring, my kids and I attended a science event at the library on the solar eclipse, each of them learning and crafting to show what happens during a total eclipse. This class made witnessing the eclipse firsthand in Arkansas so much richer for us. Over last summer, my kids and I and their friends attended the very popular glow-in-the-dark painting event here at this library. It was so well attended that the librarians were forced to cut off attendance, and many people had to wait. It became a one-out, one-in model because there simply wasn't a space to accommodate the influx of eager families looking forward to the weekday afternoon event. We do not have an engagement problem here at our Greenville County libraries, and that is a wonderful thing. But I fear the consequences of the strain on our libraries. I'm wrapping up, yep. Will grow if the trend continues of not paying our librarians adequately.
Thank you.
I'm a 30-year Greenville resident, and I don't have prepared remarks. I'm always impressed by the detail that I hear from some of the library board members and the finance committee. I just want to say, all of the things I've heard, all of them from the previous speakers, strike me as well thought of and genuine experiences. I just wonder, at $5 million, what more could we have done? That $5 million could have gone to other experiences, other services for the library. So someone's not doing something right. And I ask you to look at that, use the money that the county has given us to use. What, are you saying you're wrong? So use it the way that you see the residents of Greenville County appreciate it and need it. Thank you.
Kirby Crowe.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Kirby Crowe. I'm a Greenville County resident and native. I currently live in Berea. First of all, I want to say that the story out there is not that salaries and funding are being cut. The story is that your proposed budget does not adequately support the needs of the library, even though there are funds available to do so. I'm here to voice concerns about the draft budget that the board is voting on today. I do not understand why the Board of Trustees, the body that should be the strongest advocate and protector of this vital community resource, is proposing a budget that does not encourage our library system to thrive and does not meet the basic needs of employees. There is currently a chaotic campaign in this country at the federal level to dismantle organizations that focus on meeting individuals' needs and advancing quality of life. It is one thing to see these careless and cruel events play out in Washington, and quite another to see it up close at the local level. Therefore, it is now, of all times, that those in charge of maintaining our public and cultural resources must take the utmost care to protect these institutions. This fad of break first, ask questions later that is sweeping through Washington and filtering down to state and local governments is short-sighted and harmful to our communities. Do not let our libraries get swept up in this. I ask that you please make the library's budget and any proposed changes easily accessible on the Board of Trustees webpage, along with minutes from board meetings. Many county residents are unable to attend board meetings at noon on Mondays. Finally, I'd like to say I'm a proud product of the Greenville County Library System. My parents encouraged me to enjoy time in the library from the beginning. A trip to the main library and seeing the incredible globe spinning in the center of the building was a treat. Visiting the Berea Branch Library at that time on Cedar Lane Road was a regular occurrence. I grew up understanding how reading opens up worlds and perspectives to us we may not know. I also grew up understanding what it means to be part of a community and to serve and cherish that community. Please move forward in your budget discussions by allocating the necessary funds for the library to not only survive, but to flourish. Keep the incredible value of the library system top of mind and the thousands of lives it enriches, especially those of children. Libraries are special places for everyone, but especially for children. Thank you.
Well, I got Sheila Keeney again. I don't think we're, go for a second, I don't know how that happened. Stephen, right there.
James, you gonna be on your phone all the time?
Excuse me?
James, you gonna got his phone all the time?
You go?
That's Leslie, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. Thank you, everyone, regardless, in front of me, for stepping up and being involved in your community. Something we have in common. Thank you, Joe, especially, for asking common sense questions. Thank you to the library administration for keeping the library alive another day. Most of the people in front of me are the same people who have been lobbying for decades to defund public schools. And maybe I would have that in common with you genuinely, if you had a genuine alternative. But today you showed us your cards. You aren't genuine. You don't know your history. You don't know what this place was built for. It was for a working person to pull themselves up, to not be trapped inhaling cotton at the textile mills, to learn business management and engineering, to learn how to grow food for their families and themselves. 100 years ago, we built public schools to ensure children were literate, yes, and for working adults, we built libraries, which offer just as much in a self-paced, self-directed format. Your HR manager said 2 weeks ago that you are having trouble hiring security guards. So you want my 4 homeschool nieces to run around their library every week with a basic guarantee of safety out the window. My nieces would never literally run in a library with me. You have no plan for them. You hack away at the body of the library with a blunt axe. And you tell us it's for our own good. Who gets most of that money back, James? The rich. A real trustee fights for their staff and for working class people. Your job is to fight for our right to self-help. That is what a library is for. It is not some woke, deep state, DEI, libtard conspiracy. It is common sense. Your job is to hear from the library what it actually needs to fulfill their mission, to push back against the self-serving politicians on county council, not to suck up to them. There's a funny name for that behavior. Bootlicker. I hope their boot stays good.
Hi, my name is Claire, and a lot of what I had planned to say, Sheila has already said it for me. I do want to commend the committee on doing an awesome job of watching out for our taxpayer money. I'm flabbergasted by the surplus. And it's very ironic that that happened today when I came into the library and I asked the girl at the desk for a piece of paper. I was told they're not allowed to give out paper. So she offered me a piece of printer paper, the little thing that comes off the adding machines. And you're sitting here with $5 million to give back to the taxpayers, but I couldn't receive a piece of paper to write on at the front desk. Something's messed up.
Vivian Ramirez.
I do want to say that I also think it's weird that we're speaking at the end of the meeting rather than at the beginning before we have votes. I don't really understand that logic. But what I really want to say is that when I was a young child, I was so shy and introverted that I never spoke a word my whole first half of kindergarten. I would only nod and shake my head. But I was lucky because my teacher had a baby that year, and Miss Roundtree stepped in as her substitute teacher. And it just so happened that Mrs. Roundtree was also a part-time librarian in our local library on the weekends. And I remember my mom taking me there on Saturday mornings, and Miss Roundtree started helping me find books. And I fell in love. Through reading and experiencing other worlds, I began to open up. And to this day, when I walk into a library, I just feel a sense of calm and security that I don't feel anywhere else. I truly believe that without Miss Roundtree and the safe haven that was my little library in Effingham County, Georgia, I would never have gotten to where I am today. I certainly would not be speaking in front of all these people. But libraries are not just buildings, they're safety zones. They're a place where the poor and the marginalized, shy and introverted and different can all be accepted and explore the world. And librarians are not just employees, they are teachers, eye-openers, knowledge expanders, and life changers. To this day, I often make this comment all the time to my husband, how wonderful and incredible it is that we have a library system where we can all go and learn and check out books and have unlimited access to materials for free. I am a social worker and I work with families who are struggling. I know a lot of people, especially in more conservative areas, tend to think that look at struggling people as people who aren't working or who are lazy or who don't want to do for themselves. But with rent in Greenville being just for the most meager apartment or trailer, like at least $1,200, $1,300, and I'm talking about trailers that are falling apart, that it's shameful that we have people living in. I go to people's homes so I see it. And with childcare running $1,000 a child per month, it just takes more money right now for a family to live just a normal, regular life. And I think that our librarians and our library staff don't deserve to be able to support themselves and their families and just have a good life.
Thank you.